Remember, because you're in the States, Michelle Obama just simply said, all we want is for people to move a little bit more than they did yesterday. Because she appreciated how difficult it's going to be to get some people to move. And so she just set that little step of just a little bit more than you did yesterday. That's your first step.
Welcome to this week's Escape Your Limits podcast. Our guest today is known as the Daddy of Data. He's also the founder of the Leisure Database Company, which is a leading independent specialist in the leisure sector, providing key market intelligence and analysis across the fitness industry in the form of an annual State of the Industry report. Due to the pandemic, the last State of the Industry report was conducted in 2019, so there's an eager anticipation surrounding the 2022 report, which is due for public release in May. In this week's episode, I attempt to get some insights from the upcoming 2022 report, hear about the lack of high-quality data the fitness industry were able to provide to the government during the pandemic and how that affected their ability to stay open, and learn about the untapped growth opportunity for the fitness sector that most brands are ignoring. So please welcome the founder of the Leisure Database Company, Mr. David Minton.
All these things that you do, I think it's just fantastic that you find the time to do it.
Well, I was thinking about it as I was going through the notes for your interview, and it was kind of one of the things through the pandemic that actually kept me and many others sane, because as soon as I interviewed Al Noshravani when it was announced that the world was going to be closed down, and I spoke to Paul Bedford. And I said, oh, look, we had a chat. I think he was about to do an event or something, and, suddenly the fitness industry's closed. And I said to him, look, is there anyone I can speak to that has any information about what people should do? In terms of membership and freezing memberships and that whole process. So the first one I did was the first remote one with Al. I did it on a Sunday, I think. And I was like, okay, well, this is going to be interesting. I didn't know whether our business was even going to get through this, and whether the industry was going to get through this. And so we did one, and then I thought, okay, well, remote. Although I was against doing remote ones because it wasn't quite the same. You lost a bit of energy with the guest. I said, well, look, let's give it a go, and it kind of allowed us to speak to a lot more people around the world as it happened, and it was one of the things that I kind of look forward to, is just speaking to other people and seeing what was happening out there.
Yeah. Well, it's been enlightening for all of us, you doing it.
Well, thank you, David. Well, look, let's kick things off. I was really interested to talk to you again because it's been a while since our last one. It's been a few years since we were sitting there in London. And who would have thought, when I was asking you what the future of the fitness industry was going to be, that that was going to be like it's turned out.
Yeah.
I've been told that they call you the daddy of data now.
Well, it's very nice of them, isn't it? It just shows that after 3 decades, that people are starting to pay more attention to data than ever before.
Yeah. Well, I thought it was a good place to start because I've through, as we've just said, through this period, one of the things a lot of people have been talking about, guests and even on social media, is what's the government doing? Why don't the government recognize the industry? And I know in the US in particular, unfortunately, things didn't quite go as well as planned. But I believe certainly in the US now, I was talking to Liz just a few weeks ago, and although they probably weren't as successful as they'd hoped, there's definitely now a seat at the table, and there's recognition and an awareness of the industry. And I think what she was saying is it certainly put us in a lot better position than probably what we were before. I was reading one of the articles that you wrote, and which kind of made me think about things in a very different way, where you were saying, look, we're trying to convince the government, but we're not using any kind of hard data to do that. And I suppose it was the first time I changed my mind, because I was very critical about the government and what they'd done, and particularly as what we know about health and fitness and the benefits of it, and the people that are affected being elderly or more elderly and people that are not as fit. And I'm like, well, why don't they just recognize this, and why are they closing us down? But the way you put it was, look, you know, you're just not presenting the information. There's not the peer-reviewed studies that they probably need to see. So maybe we start there, and you know, what's been your involvement, because I know that you've been asked to look at some information, and what do you think we need to do from a data perspective to be taken a lot more seriously by the governments around the world?
Okay, that's a great place to start. So what we discovered during the pandemic was that there was very little common knowledge about the industry. So at the height of the pandemic, the government were obviously keen to do anything they could to help the population through this dreadful virus. So one of the questions they asked was, of the 10.4 million fitness members, are those 10.4 million members fitter and healthier than the rest of the population because they've got a gym membership? Oh, that's quite difficult to prove. Okay. Well, the vast majority of people who are really affected by COVID are people over 65. What percentage of the people of the 10.4 million members are over 65? Well, we don't actually collect that information, and I'm not sure who else does. And so all their questions revolved around areas of common knowledge that we don't hold. And so that made me thinking, wow, after 3 decades of collecting more data more often than anyone else across this incredible ever-changing supply side of of the 7,000 sites that do fitness, and then all the geodemographic demand for fitness across the UK, the government then starts to ask questions that we had no answers to. So what we need to do as an industry is actually start collecting more information. Now, one of the things that the government highlighted was the connected fitness industry basically provide loads of information. So we know that there were over 1 billion workouts just logged on the top 3 fitness channels on YouTube last year. It's estimated that the total number of workouts on YouTube, TikTok, and Facebook and Amazon totaled over 10 billion last year. Now, of those millions and billions of workouts that are going on, you also have organizations, dare I say it, like Peloton. And Peloton are quite open about the number of exercise events per month on average taken by their members. And it went to over 20 during the pandemic. So the government say, how many exercise events per month are happening across the 10.4 million members that have got direct debits? And of course, we don't know, because it's, as Dr. Paul would say, it's one of the questions that people don't want to give the answers to. So I think that the industry has to declare, okay, we're not having as many exercise events, but this is our starting point. And we have to be honest, what the starting point is probably lower than what we think it should be. And one of the phrases I have is that whatever you think the incidence of fitness activity has been, it's lower than that. Because we all just quite naturally think that we've been to the gym or we've done more exercise than we really have. And we kid ourselves at that. And so with connected fitness, you can't kid yourself. The other thing with connected fitness is the high level of renewal subscription each month. Again, the new CEO of Peloton claims it's 99%. And again, how do we work that out? And there is no common way of working that out. So again, the industry has to declare a common knowledge way of working that out, and sharing this information. There we are.
Well, that is quite interesting in itself. And I suppose there's two questions that come to mind from what you've said. I guess one is, would you say then that the data, and I guess there's a question mark around data, but from what it seems on the surface, and I know you're collecting data, a billion data points, I understand from your latest report that you're doing. So you're, as I said at the beginning, daddy of data, you must know this. But from what you see then, one is it a case of that these guys are just a lot more dialed in when it comes to being able to present data about what people are doing at a much higher level? Do you think that the connected fitness at home are actually just more effective at getting people to be engaged and work out more than they would be to go to a fitness club or something else? You know, what's your thoughts on that? Because it seems from what you're saying that actually, look, you know, the people that are staying at home doing Peloton are there's a lot more of them, and they're a lot more active than people going to fitness clubs, and maybe that's what we should be thinking about.
Well, if we go back a few years, one famous entrepreneur in the fitness industry, I presented some geodemographic data to them, and the managing director said to me, "David, I'm not interested in that." He said, "What you don't realize is I have their bank details." And we have to remember that originally the industry was growing so fast. People were able to open clubs, and people signed up, and we didn't really collect a lot more information on the individuals. And I think it's true to say that there are a few very good operators that do collect more information, but then it's a case of what do you do with it. So, well, I keep one of the clubs that I belong to, I get a text when there's no hot water, but I don't get a text when there's only one bike left on a Friday at 5 o'clock in the spinning room. Yeah. So I think that we have to get more connected with our fitness and the equipment in the traditional gyms.
It seems as though I guess it's probably not been as important. Like, data's been nice and it's been useful, and you could put different arguments about it. But I suppose coming out of the pandemic and you know, suddenly when your business is being closed down, being able to have access to good data to make an argument that you shouldn't be closed down suddenly becomes a lot more important, I would say. Well, I'm certain of that. So I guess it's a problem that wasn't recognized. Now it is. And then on top of that, you've kind of got this new part of the industry that wasn't there 2 or 3 years ago to the same scale. I tell this story a lot, but I went to ISPO right before the pandemic, which is the big consumer show in Germany, in Munich. And the guys on the booths there were just, you know, they're on the verge of sort of crying into their hands because the whole home fitness sector was just just caving in. You know, nobody was buying home fitness. You know, Kettler, which was a huge brand, they were sort of closing and reopening again, and you know, biggest home fitness brand in Europe, and that was pretty much the scene across everybody else. It had become just an old industry. And then suddenly overnight, anybody that had a set of dumbbells to sell into the home suddenly selling them for a fortune. So you've got this sort of new industry that's come out that has evolved, with the connected part, where suddenly you've got all this information and data. You've got the fitness industry that needs this information and they didn't really think they needed it before. And I suppose when we talk about this hybridization of fitness, it would, maybe it's different to what we're all thinking about, but maybe it is that seamless experience, which I think in some cases when I talk to people we're missing, because what I feel the response is, we need an app, we need we need to do exercise on an iPhone, as opposed to what people like Peloton are really doing is they're data companies, and they know everything about what you're doing, when you're doing it, who you're interacting with, who you like, when you cheer, and all that kind of stuff. And maybe it is this sort of embracing of, well, how can you really connect your experience seamlessly so that as an operator we can then use that to make an argument to the government, for example. What do you think?
Sure. And I think that I think that we should also think about the generational link here. So the people that are using most of the connected fitness are the Gen Zs. But what's interesting, of course, is that the Gen Zs are the people that have got the guilty secrets of ordering more takeaway deliveries than they go to the gym. And a quarter of people splurge on takeaways and food deliveries now more than they did before the pandemic. Now, are they also going to the gym or doing other activities to work those pounds off that they're putting on? And the other thing to think on that is, in the UK alone, all the people who are trying to encourage you to have takeaway deliveries are spending around £500 million just promotional money. So, they all send you, £20 off next delivery or 20% off next delivery, to encourage you like crazy. And as I say, how often do I get communicated by any of the clubs that I go to? It's very rare. So, so let's also think about the government were very concerned about the people who were dying of COVID. And I'm of the boomer generation. So there are over 14 million baby boomers in the UK. Now, we make up the largest generational group. And boomers were born between 46 and 64. And so that means that we're aged between 57 and 75. Now, as it happens, I'm a boomer. So boomers don't want to get old. They want to stay fit and healthy. And how does our industry help them? And how many boomers are actually exercising across our industry? And I wrote an article when my mother died about active aging. And some people wondered whether I should actually say that the industry is ageism, suffers from ageism. And I thought, yeah, I should, because I actually come across it on a regular basis. Okay, I go to an indoor cycling studio. They don't necessarily know that I qualified as an instructor 25 years ago. Okay, But even so, there are ways in which one can present the question, have you cycled before, to an older person. And my mother died, not of COVID, but she died during the pandemic. And she came from what's known as the greatest generation. So after baby boomers, you have the silent generation. Silent generation are the wealthiest generation that the world has ever known. Well, they've all got properties. It's amazing. And yet, how many of those are members? But if you go to the greatest generation, then my mum was born in 1923. And the older she got, the more interested in keeping healthy and active. So nothing to do with the fact that I was in the business, but she wanted to continue with this healthy movement. Now, how many, I think, let me just go back a second. I think that our industry could actually double in size if we just simply started to cater for the older generation. That's exactly what the government would love us to do.
Thank you for supporting the Escape Your Limits podcast. If you're thinking about creating a unique and engaging fitness space to take your fitness to the next level, then we have you covered. Escape Fitness design and manufacture some of the most innovative, attractive, and durable functional training and free weight equipment used by many of the best trainers and fitness brands across the globe. As a valued listener, we are offering you a 10% discount off many of the products on our website. You can check out the full range by going to escapefitness.com and use the code dumbbell. That's escapefitness.com using the code dumbbell. That's it from me. Please enjoy the rest of this interview.
I saw in one of the articles you mentioned that it was potentially 10 times larger than the health club market. It could be a $1 trillion business, and I think these are your stats. But you said if as an industry we've got around about 1% of our members are in that sort of 65 and over, and if we took it to 15% of our membership, it would also double the industry. So if there is that much of a compelling argument, and if it is so competitive out there, and there's this big untapped opportunity, what's the issue then?
That's such a good question, and I don't know the answer. And I've also asked loads of people the exact question. And to just go back to the $1 trillion business. So the analysts in America at Fit Insider, who produce that wonderful newsletter every week, they were the people who estimated that healthy movement is the $1 trillion business, which is around 10 times bigger than the fitness industry. And if we're going to move towards helping people with that healthy movement, then I think we've got to prioritize the way in which we completely present the industry. So one of the things I was wondering was, is it another industry? If we have failed to reach those people in the numbers that we should be reaching, then should we be thinking about just setting up a complete new industry?
Well, I guess I didn't know what the healthy movement industry was, and it seems like there's a lot of potential in there. I was listening to one of your interviews that you did at the Evolve conference. So I was listening to your interview, and then there was a gentleman called Lieberman that talked about the fact that we're sort of we've evolved to move, not exercise, and it led into this healthy movement. So why don't you, for people who don't know, why don't you explain the difference between, I suppose, regular, what we think is exercise in a fitness club, and what healthy movement is?
Well, we could start by changing it. So instead of it being a HIT class, we change it to a LIT class. So it's a light movement instead of the H. And so the low impact interval training is really important for people. And the healthy movement by taking, say, mobility classes, as I do now in Hyde Park every week. So people are interested in just simply the day-to-day movement, making day-to-day movements easier. So getting up out of a chair, tying your shoelaces. So many of these things are at such a low level but they're also so important. And I think that the industry just feels that they should appeal to the low-hanging fruit of the Gen Zs. And the 18 to 34-year-olds is going to be the bulk of the membership.
Yeah. Well, it's clear as I'm a Gen Z. Was it Gen Z? I've been here too long, haven't I? Gen Z. I'm a Gen Z, and so I kind of sit in between this sort of like the HIT class type of mentality, which is, I suppose, like you, I don't want to get old. I want to be young forever. I still think of myself as 25, but a lot of people around me, a lot of very close friends have kind of, not from the fitness space, have not sort of kept that mentality in terms of fitness. So I kind of have people now that I know that are sort of are in that age group and look as old as they are. And certainly when I've worked out with a few people of my own age, you realize, damn, like just running for 10 or 15 minutes or running 5 to 10 minutes, to be honest, and doing some very, very light weight stuff is actually a challenge for them. And I've, not that I'm a trainer, but I've trained quite a few people, and you've really got to dumb it down, like, massively. And it was quite a shock to me, really, because you sort of appreciate that, you appreciate the benefit of working out, and two, you realize how quickly that things can change. And obviously, as somebody that's selling fitness equipment and programs, and you think, okay, you need to get into a HIT class, he's like, actually, no, this person just needs to start with the basics. And then secondly, as my knowledge has improved, is I've realized that actually for a lot of people, even particularly women at certain times of the month, and people that are stressed and overweight, then the last thing that you actually want to do is to do a HIT class, because that's going to make the situation way worse. And yet, if you look at anything on social media or whatever, it's like, oh, well, that's the type of training you've got. So I guess it seems as though the people that are creating this, and we're certainly one of those people, is one, our messaging is probably wrong, and maybe it's not cool and sexy and exciting to tell about a program which is bending down and tying your shoes, but somehow that is what we've got to do in a way that doesn't make the people that are following it feel as though they're disabled in some way, just that they're in the 50s. Yeah.
So think about this. For female life expectancy in the UK is just 82 years. So my mother lived until she was 97. Now, what can happen is that people between 82 and 97 really start to suffer secondary illnesses, and it does affect their quality of life. However, my mother was really lucky. So mentally, she was fine until the last day, and what I decided in her mid-80s was that I was going to help her extend her disease and injury-free life. I had no idea how long it was going to continue for, but in the end, it continued for 15 years longer than the average. And we did that by a combination of things. But what was fascinating was that we would have personal trainers from the London Borough of Sandwell, God bless them, they were just fantastic. And they would come and they knew exactly how to help my mother with chair exercises. Now, I can remember going to exhibition where some famous studio organization were doing chair exercises. And I'm not sure that it caught on, but the potential for
it's not very sexy, is it? You know, like if someone like you're a young, you've just sent me a picture of you working out in the park with London with your band. You know, and that looks like you were having a great time and you're doing press ups and stuff. But telling you to go and do a chair exercise kind of puts you in a mentally. It's like, I don't want to be doing chair exercise classes. And I suppose, you know, how do we package it? I'm sure there's ways to do it, and you could do a chair exercise without a chair. You could do it on you could turn up a sandbag or something, and you could do the same thing. But it just seems as though it's like an image problem. Anybody who's young who thinks about training old people thinks about it like they're old people, whereas old people, and I put myself now in that class, older people don't want to be doing that stuff, do they? And they want it to be young and sexy and, you know, cool and.
well, you know, maybe that comes back to my point that maybe we're talking about a completely new business. Now, the NHS here have a long-term plan, and it's called social prescribing. And that is to support independent active aging. So the plan works. So if older people are in hospital, the aim is to get them out of hospital and as quickly as possible, and then rehabilitate them and help them to get them back into their own homes. I know all about it because my mother did it a couple of times, but it worked. It worked, and it kept my mother until 97 independent in her own home, and therefore she's contributing to society. You know, she's paying things, she's paying the bills, she's employing people, and that's what the NHS here is very, very keen to do. Now, if you've got an aging society, which we have and Japan has, then we know that we need the care systems joined up more. And just through my 15 years of helping my mother extend her life, I suddenly discovered there are so many departments within the NHS that I could call upon to help, and they were there. And I also merged that with the leisure department at the local authority. And together, they kept her healthy and independent. Now that is $1 billion business, and we're not touching it. And we should be, as an industry, heavily involved in it.
Yeah, it seems like, I think the numbers that I read when you sent me your email before is that by 2050, 1 in 4 people are going to be over the age of 65, which isn't that old nowadays. So 25% of the population is going to be over 65, which is huge. At the moment, is it 1 in 6?
Yeah, just less than that. Yeah.
Right. So yeah, maybe that is the case. It's a different, you know, maybe it has to be looked at rather than trying to, I suppose, group everything together, and maybe it is a separate area of focus. You talk about this remote coach app. What's that then?
So we have a number of London is an amazing place to start a new business, And Ben Kamara started Remote Coach, and now this also links back to connected fitness. So, as you know, we have loads of influencers on social media, and some of those influencers are keen to start their own fitness channel, and that those that do go to Ben at Remote Coach. So he's been in our business for some years, had a couple of personal training sites, and now has gone to a wider audience. So that's a great example. And the other praise
Is that targeted? Is that targeted at a particular demographic then, or is that just
just anyone? Ben has been really successful in the sense that he is one of 30 odd entrepreneurs that Google have picked up, and now Google are working with him to improve his business. So it's a great example of a startup in London.
And what would he and that Remote Coach then, I suppose, be doing differently than what we've probably seen before?
I think it's more. I don't necessarily think that they're doing things differently. It's more a case of getting it to a wider audience and encouraging. So instead of Remote Coach trying to do it themselves, then they get influencers that have got 1 million followers.
So what are they doing? They're using fitness trainers to expand the reach, are they?
Yeah, so the influencers are actually doing a daily workout on their channel, and some of them are charging for it now. It's become so successful.
Interesting.
And Remote Coach provide the let's call it education.
Right. And does that tie into this sort of healthy movement?
Yes.
Sort of.
Yes,
right.
Exactly.
Okay. So getting more people to just move as opposed to, I suppose, traditionally like exercise and work out then.
Well, remember, because you're in the States, Michelle Obama just simply said, all we want is for people to move a little bit more than they did yesterday. Because she appreciated how difficult it's going to be to get some people to move. And so she just set that little step of just a little bit more than you did yesterday. That's your first step.
And what's this? I wasn't aware of this other one, the Halo app. So what's that doing? And again, in relation to sort of like a different market.
So Amazon have introduced movement health as a new feature on Halo, and that's their wrist-worn health and activity tracker. Now, what's fascinating there is that combines artificial intelligence, computer vision, machine learning, and it produces, wait for it, personalized programming every day for you if you want it. I mean, it's what it's doing is it is encouraging movements that we mostly take for granted and that we do without thinking. But there is a huge population out there that can't do it. And Amazon have picked up on that. And I just love the fact that you get these personalized programming from them every day. So it picks up on what you're doing. So it automatically says, Matthew can't do his shoelaces up. So we have to work on that.
How does it figure that something out like what you're doing?
So we also have in London another startup called Atlas AI, and Atlas AI again have developed this artificial intelligence that can monitor people via video. So you can see what you should be doing compared to what you're actually doing. And you can give live help via the video link to people.
So somehow then this Halo app so do you have to put like the camera in front of you, or can does it just, you do?
No,
right.
So you have to be on camera.
Right.
Yeah.
So you do a workout, and then it kind of looks this. And I've only just learnt about this computer. What's it called? Like computer vision. That's it.
Computer vision. Right.
So I've only just learned. I didn't realize that was even possible. but it sounds quite amazing, quite scary. But so what you do then, if I'm correct in understanding this, then, so you've got this computer vision that can basically act like your eyes, and it can watch what you're actually doing.
Yes.
And then the AI causes it over time to learn patterns, so it kind of knows, oh, okay, if you're twisted here or whatever, that means that you need to do this. So are you saying then that this Halo, this thing within the Halo app, can basically watch your workouts? It can use artificial intelligence, and then it can give you other things to do related to where you are. Is that kind of what it's doing?
Absolutely. So the Amazon one links the artificial intelligence with the computer vision and machine learning, and then it produces this personalized programming every day for you.
Wow.
I know. I know.
I didn't realize. I was talking to someone at the Connected Fitness Summit about this, and I was imagining that, okay, well, maybe if you're doing that and it watches 1,000 people that are doing a kettlebell swing, and they're standing a little bit off to the left, it can realize that you've got a tight hamstring because it's seen so many people, and then it can tell you, right, you need to roll out your hamstrings or whatever. Because it knows, it knows as much as a highly skilled trainer that can look at how you're moving and identify imbalances and issues with you.
So after we finished, what I'm going to do is I'm going to send you the video that Sam did from Atlas AI. He went on a 3-month TechStars accelerator program, and I'll send you his final 5-minute pitch, and it explains it very clearly.
Yeah, I'd love to see that. It's fascinating. And so it kind of brings me full circle. I want to get into some of the fitness industry stuff, but we've kind of burning through a lot of time, but it's very interesting. But I want to get into some of the stuff as it relates to your report. But I guess it comes full circle, and maybe it's a good transition. But what it seems is, and maybe it is a different industry, is that we've got the space that certainly I'm very invested in, is the traditional fitness market. And I know now that takes a lot of different forms. It doesn't necessarily all happen in a fitness club now. There's part of the expansion seems to be fitness in other areas, from apartments to businesses and all kinds of things. So that's definitely changing. But I suppose if you're an owner of a fitness club or fitness chain, some of this power that is really important for you to improve the quality of your product, to justify why you should be open if there was ever a pandemic again, seems to be kind of slipping out of your hands and going into the hands of other people. And it's almost like you probably, in some ways, you don't want that. I was talking to Mike from MyZone, and he had some fantastic information that most health club operators don't have. But it's almost like, can you do anything about it? Or if not, how do you kind of embrace that and make sure that this doesn't run away with you, and then you become this sort of appendage on the end of where everything's happening?
Well, that almost brings us back to the starting point of the audit. So we've been doing the audit for the last 20 years. So we talk to every fitness site each year, And we've improved the way that we do it. Obviously, each year there's learning that goes on behind the scenes, and generally speaking, brands and sites are very supportive to produce the State of the Industry report, which is being launched this year on the 26th of May. And I'll send you more details of that. It's going to be launched both in the City of London, but also virtually. So you'll be able to watch the launch. So after 30 years of collecting data and analysing the data, what we've realised is that we have to collect more data more often, which is like a catchphrase that's a common catchphrase that we all know. And to aid this collective knowledge that the government are really interested in. So the way we're going to do that is by developing the algorithms that we currently use that will trawl more social media sites more often for fitness trends and for customer behavior. And that way, we're going to gather a lot more about what the consumer is doing as opposed to what the industry is doing.
That's going to be the sort of evolution of your business then, is it, in terms of what you're doing with your reports, is just sort of being more on top of it all the time, so as opposed to just being a once a year big project?
Exactly, yeah. So we need to be able to publish the data at any time. So the whole business plan is changing.
So coming back to that original question then, and then sort of linking it into your report. Obviously, I know you've not got all this data, but in one of the videos you did early on in the year, you do talk about some of the changes that you're starting to see post-pandemic. So one of the things I was curious to talk about is you mentioned that in terms of returning, and this does plug into our previous conversation, is that the younger people are coming back a lot quicker than the older ones, and that's not just in fitness, that seems to be across the board. Was that sort of immediately after that, or is that still something that is there, and there's still a lot of work to be done to get sort of more of the older people back into some of the businesses?
Obviously it's a generalization, and it's certainly true to say that it is probably the most complicated that it's ever been, because we also have obviously you were talking to Fitness First a few weeks ago, and they split their sites into 3 different levels, and so people that have got residential sites have had a lot easier reopening, whereas the city sites are still, I shouldn't say struggling, but are having a more difficult time. So city sites have to get used to the fact that people are, generally speaking, in the office Tuesday, Wednesday and Thursday. So that means if you're a part of a brand and you've got a residential site that you can offer them, then that's okay. If you're an independent in the city, then that's going to affect your business. And we're seeing, we don't have the numbers yet, but we're seeing that the independents are probably struggling more than any other sector.
Yeah, I did an interview with a lady from ClassPass a little while ago, and she was saying similar things, that the more the sort of suburbs and out of the city locations were definitely doing a lot better, which I suppose with people having to stay at home or work from home and lockdown would obviously make a lot of sense. And I guess there's a lot of people have got quite comfortable with not actually going into the office, and their patterns are changing. When you say independence, though, do you is that purely down to location? Because in my experience, the people that seem to be coming out of this quite quickly, all guns blazing, are the smaller independents, the smaller personal trainers that have got into the industry, the smaller group exercise people. I've not broken it down into where those people are based, but in our business, that is where in the sort of membership type of businesses, that's where all the activity seems to be at the moment.
Yeah, so I think that geographically, the location plays a really important part post-pandemic. So we're aware of some incredibly successful independents, and that's why I say it is the most complicated report that we've ever done. So the analysis that the data scientists are working on, it has got them scratching their heads, and so we're going to create probably going to create a new topic called temporary closure. So a site that hasn't really opened since the pandemic, but where the owners tell us it's not closing.
Where the owners tell you, say that again.
So we know that it's not going to close. So
right.
So we have this incredibly rigid way. We can't close an existing site unless we know in some categorical way that it is actually closed, that it's not being repurposed in some way, that it's not going to just change its name, that it's not going to be taken over by a bigger brand. We need to. So a closure is a very definite event on the database, and so, as I say, we're now going to have almost certainly a new category called temporary closures.
With the closures, I have seen some reports that have been out there and people talking that there's been around about 30% of the industry that's totally gone, clubs that will never open again. Have you got anything at this stage to know whether that number's sort of reasonably accurate without sort of spilling the beans on what's in the report?
No. I mean, it's just too early to say. I have no idea where that figure came from. I think it was almost a publicity stunt in an attempt, almost to push the government to hell. It's a bit like the arts, that saying that half the theatres are going to close forever. But no, at the moment we just don't know.
No. Okay. And with what you're doing, then, do you know of any other information out there that is being reported then that's highly extensive and as accurate as what you're going to be producing then, that you're aware of?
Well, the other best example is Germany, who recently produced their report. That's a very substantial, and again, that's produced by the German Association.
So that one's pretty accurate then, if you want to find out what's happening there as an example market.
Yeah. The problem with collating different countries is that there is no agreed definition for what is a health club. And so some countries put in ladies circuit training, for example, and some countries leave them out. So there's just no agreed methodology. So so that it just becomes difficult to compare one country against another.
What about the different types of business models? Have you wrote an article on this sort of low cost model, and from what I see, that they seem to be bouncing back pretty strong. The value of some of these companies seems to be pretty high, but in your article you mentioned that low cost is becoming more mid-market than low cost. What did you mean by that, and where did you sort of get that from?
Okay, so let's go back to 2012 when the low cost budget gyms first started to open. So in our 2012 report, we said we have to divide between low cost and mid-market and the luxury end. So where should we define this? So we looked at all the low cost, and one of the defining factors was that they were charging less than £20 a month. So we said, okay, that's the cutoff point. In 2012, that's the cutoff point. By the time we got to 2019, 75% of all low cost were in between 20 and 25. So we raised the low cost from 20 to 25. So cutoff was 25. Now it becomes even more complicated because you have a low cost hook that is lower than 20 or lower than 25. But then if you want extra things, it's an extra £5 a month, or it's an extra £10 a month. And then all of a sudden you discover, and again, the gym group and Pure are very open about this. So where the demographics allow them to raise the prices, then all of a sudden the so-called low-cost brand isn't low cost, it's now mid-market. So if you just look at the 7,000 sites and you look at it from a price point of view, then around 70% of the 7,000 sites are in the mid-market. So the low cost up to £25, then let's say we go up to £75, and then above £75 is more luxurious premium. Then you're going to get the vast majority of sites in the mid-market.
Do you think that some of that's to do with, particularly now, like staff wages are going up, energy's going up, cost of equipment is going up, so everything is increasing. Do you think some of that's just to do with like everything across the board is going up, so things are going to be more expensive? So low cost when it was £20 is now going to be 30 or 40, or do you think that generally there's a move towards providing more value and services, and that's kind of what the market is looking for and offering?
Well, the other thing to bear in mind is the public sector had an average price of £42 a month, and they had around 5 million people paying that. And then the low cost came along and expanded the market. So again, we have to come back to the geodemographics of this. Who wants to pay at what level for what? And the industry has obviously started to work that out. But now, post-pandemic, isn't it time for us to also be thinking about some of the things we've been talking about, i.e. expanding the people who are interested in coming through those doors?
Yeah, that's right. That's what I was thinking. And again, going back to that beginning point then, do you think it seems in terms of penetration rates, and I guess you're going to reveal that in the report. I'd be interested to see what that is now. But
yeah, very interesting. Even I'm interested in that.
But it seems as though it's not, we're not getting massive jumps in penetration rates. So we're probably circulating a lot of the same people, increasing competition, which is fine. But now we've got to look at, I think you've identified that there are new markets. It seems as though if we want to increase that, and if your statistics say, depending on where that's going, that, we've got to find new areas of growth. Do you think that if we're not in just the fitness, but we are more into health, and I suppose COVID has made lots of people that I know think about health as being more important, and health comes from exercise and nutrition, etc. Do you think that if people are more educated, that there could be a need for a better quality of product? Because I think everybody knows that you can't go into a low-cost gym and get results, just on your own. It doesn't work. It will get you started, but you're not going to get your results without some form of intervention and support and coaching and education. So do you think that if there's more value in the proposition and a better understanding of how nutrition and diet relates to your health, that there's more people paying more money available to the industry?
Absolutely. So let's think about the relationship between the exercise dose, and we express that in a health term. So the relationship between the exercise dose and improving your health. Now, it is actually very confusing. It needs more research, and then it needs more education. But doctors and academics agree that physical activity affects the health span. I proved it with my mother. And so more than the lifespan, what we want to do is we want to put an unhealthy lifestyle at the back of our thoughts and educate people to a healthy lifestyle. And if we can do that, then we're going to expand our industry and potentially double it within the next few years.
But we have to do things differently.
Yeah. I think so.
Yeah. Well, I know you've always talked about, on the last podcast, you said everybody should have a personal trainer, and I've not seen that model yet. I know that the digital world seems to be allowing that to be enabled a lot easier than what it would. But I guess that's the truth. You can't, the average, even a skilled person, I would argue, would struggle to really get to where they need to be just left to their own resources. Even people that are super motivated, it's not a case of just taking something and then it's all fixed, is it? You've got to work at it, and you need support and coaching and education.
Yeah. So when I did the ETAP cycle ride, then the guy that I did it with said, we need support. So we took a former professional cyclist and we went cycling with him twice a week. We then took a nutritionist, because we needed to understand how to keep the legs going. Then we took a personal trainer, and one of the first things that he said was, no more spinning classes for you two. And we go, but we're going on a big cycle ride, surely spinning classes are good. He said, no, because I can't measure it. Everything you do from now on is going to be measured. Wow. And then, of course, we had masseurs and we had osteopaths, and we had a whole team of people behind us. But on the day, it was fabulous, and we were successful and we enjoyed it. But looking back on it, would I have just done it on my own? Probably not.
Yeah, you mentioned there's a couple of interesting areas there as well. You talked about like the massage and the recovery, which is a whole new area that, again, I think has been unappreciated. Certainly, a lot of the strap lines have been, around the no pain, no gain, and it's all about work and what you put in. And now, coming from elite sport, I suppose people have realised, oh damn, you need your aura, you need your sleep, you need to not work out today, you need to work in as opposed to work out. And that's something that again is relatively new. I'm seeing locations here that are now making that a key part of their offering, the recovery areas, and a lot of products that are developed on that. Is that something you're able to look at and track and identify some of these emerging trends that maybe people are incorporating post pandemic into their facilities, or are you not going to that level of detail yet?
It's not something that we're picking up yet, but it is something that we're going to be looking at in our new algorithm. Because movement needs a broader perspective than just returning to the previous direct debit and club numbers. And so a rebounding society shouldn't mean just returning to the status quo, but we should be giving the same spirit of tenacity and creativity that we saw during the face of the extreme uncertainty. And individuals know that simply doing more exercise is just like a marriage vow. It's an expression of commitment, but it's not a guarantee of success.
I like that. That's a great, I'm going to use that. That's a great statement. And one we should all probably ponder on, actually. Well, look, I think a couple of things, because we have kind of ran over a little bit. One, I know you're coming to LA for Ursa, or you're coming to Ursa and then you're coming to LA. And I think this report that you've been working on, and your team, I'd love to sort of have a bit of a follow-up, and maybe we can go into some of the more questions that I didn't get a chance to cover here. I got about halfway through. But so when is this report coming out? What does people need to look out for? When is it coming out? How do they find it?
26th of May.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
And where do they go?
In the morning of 26th of May. And there'll be huge publicity about it. So.
And do we follow? Do we follow kind of like a website or a social media page or anything like that?
It'll be on my LinkedIn page. It'll be all over social media, and it'll be on our website as well. Yeah.
Okay. Well, we'll cover that. I wanted to talk about, you've got an event that I wanted to ask you about, which is Evolve. I'm very interested in that. And maybe that's a conversation about another day about the personal health and planet health. I won't start you on that one, but I am interested. And I think that's going to be an interesting topic on its own. So we'll hold that for a part two.
Okay.
Final question.
So just on that though, I mean, just think about, given the urgency of climate change, the need to reduce demand for energy across our, not just our industry, but the economy generally. And so fitness needs a decarbonisation plan with a deadline. Currently, we have no pledges to delivering this.
And how do you, just a couple of quick tips for people to get their head thinking. So what part does because I suppose fitness, where do we play in that? Are you talking about the buildings itself that people are working out on? Because people work out indoors and outdoors. Are you talking about the equipment? Like what I would have thought working out is generally good for the environment. What part of that is bad for it then?
So one of the things that we noticed during the pandemic was that outdoor fitness classes increased by over 400%. Now, as it happens, I'm still going to an outdoor fitness class. That is completely carbon neutral. I'm not using any power doing an outdoor class. And when you're indoor, then you should be looking at how you can reduce the CO2. and the power that you're using.
But you'd have thought, I've seen some stuff out there actually. I know you reported on the McFit or the RSG guys, like
Yep.
where they're generating energy and putting, using art, recycled stuff as art. Is that the sort of direction you think that we need to be considering as an industry?
Well, in a way, you've been at the forefront of it because functional fitness, which really took off, again, so much of it just doesn't use any CO2.
Yeah. Some of the shipping it from China probably does, but we are working on that actually. We're looking to sort of manufacture things a bit closer to the destination. But
Great. So the man who created Gymshark announced at PerformX that's exactly what he's doing. So he's bringing back manufacturing to the West Midlands, and he's started to manufacture Gymshark in Solihull.
Oh, good on him.
Yeah,
that's fantastic. Yeah, I think more people, I think that's a big thing for the industry that we should be, and people don't like to pay the price, but it comes back, it goes full circle. People don't want to pay the price because they can't make any money because we're selling it too cheaply. And so I suppose there's definitely, when you look at, I went out for not to totally go off subject, but I went out for a birthday last weekend, and we didn't drink a lot. We had a decent bottle of wine. There was 4 of us, and 2 of us were drinking, and it was a $300 and something meal, which was, it's a nice restaurant, not cheap, but it's very easy to spend that without drinking too much. And when you think about, it's not like I do this every day, but when you think about how much you could pay for a decent meal at a restaurant, and compare that to the fact that you for 50 quid or $50. You can go and work out a month. I kind of feel as though we're sort of underselling ourselves a little bit.
Absolutely.
I just don't think we're selling the value, and I don't think we're investing in it as much. And even a car, it's like, well, some people spend a serious amount of money every month on their car payment, which is great. But as you gave an example about your mum, it's like, look, this car here. I'm touching my body, is going to be with you for your whole of your life. And maybe you should prioritize getting that looked after and keeping top quality tires and brakes on that first before you splash it on a car, maybe.
Yeah.
Anyway, that's my rant over. So look, David, final question then.
No,
final question.
Really?
So I asked you this last time, but it's a slightly different spin. So Escape Your Limits is about escaping what you believed is impossible and gone on to make it possible. During the pandemic, how's David escaped his own personal limits?
That's easy. I went outside, and I'm still going outside. So I exercise outside at least twice a week, and I was really, really surprised the number of people that are doing it. I'm really surprised that I am happy to go out literally -1. But then when there's 20 other people or 30 other people, that's fine. And so those outdoor classes are so popular. And so it's not just because of the environment, and it's not just because of the skills of the instructor, but I can take my dog. So about a third of the class take their dogs. So the dog gets a great workout at the same time. It's wonderful. It's wonderfully social, and I just wouldn't give that up now.
Fantastic. There's actually a gym in LA, a very cool gym. I think they've got one in New York, which is called Dog Pound. And yes. I couldn't work out why they called it Dog Pound. And apparently the guy who started it used to do it in the park, and everyone used to bring their dogs, and they'd work out together. So that's interesting you should say that.
Yeah, I just love Dog Pound. I mean, I love their social media, and the whole place just looks so cool.
Yeah, well, we'll have to go when you come to LA. We'll go and, go and check it
great.
out.
I'll keep you to that.
All right then, David. Well, thank you so much for your time today.
Pleasure. Pleasure. All the best.
Thank you. Hey, I hope you enjoyed this podcast. If you did, then please go over to iTunes and subscribe to the Escape Your Limits podcast. Leave a review, leave a comment. It really would help us a lot to continue to keep these going.